Hi there, my name is Philip Ideson. I want to welcome you to the Art of Procurement podcast, the podcast that helps you, a forward-thinking procurement professional, position yourself and your team to proactively take advantage of the revolution that's taking place in procurement today. By interviewing industry trailblazers and sharing insights from our own experiences, my team and I pull back the curtain and shine a light on the strategies, tactics, and tools that procurement teams are using to elevate their impact. Welcome to our 4-part podcast series from Art of Procurement in partnership with the team at LavenirAI. Over the course of this series, we're going to focus on how emerging technologies such as AI are changing the landscape of procurement execution and strategy, and what teams need to be focused on today to play a leading role tomorrow. In this second episode, Bill Michels, the Chief Commercial Officer at LavenirAI, joined me to talk about how procurement skills need to adapt for success in an increasingly automated world. I started by asking Bill, what are some of the areas of skills development that procurement should start thinking about and investing in, given the rising importance of technology?
Well, today I have to look at, where have people come from and where are they now? Mm-hmm. And procurement in the past has been a collection of people that have come into the profession and really kind of learned by doing, and they rely on their skill set from the associations and trade associations and seminars and things like that. And I think those things don't work anymore. So the skills that we're looking for now we're looking for analytical skills. We're looking for people that can really think through, pull through a strategy, collaborate, skills for collaboration. Because as we start to look at automation, what we're going to see our job is going to change from managing internally to managing externally. And that means as we start to align business systems with our suppliers and as we start to really refine our supply chains, we have to have people that can actually work with suppliers, align the suppliers to the business plan and move forward. So you need strategy, you need analytics, you need collaboration skills, relationship skills to try and move forward.
That's interesting. You've spent a lot of time in your career doing skill development. A lot of time in learning and development, training and development. We talk a lot about this idea of digital literacy. Is that something that can be taught, to somebody that doesn't necessarily have that background in technology?
Yeah, I think you need to be able to work along. I think it's I think you really have to have emotional intelligence. You really have to be able to use the experts that you have and learn from those experts and work together to make it work. I think, when we start to think about training and development over the years and what I see now, when I deal with the CEOs of the companies that I consulted with, they have one complaint about the procurement skill set. And that complaint is that people don't have business acumen. Right. They're really located. They like to be functional. They like to talk about RFPs and quotes and relationships, but they really don't talk about financials. They don't talk about integration with the business. They don't understand. They don't relate it to the customer. So the biggest skill set gap is the business acumen. If someone has business acumen, they'll be able to work with the technology people. They'll be able to work with emotional intelligence and really business acumen. They'll be able to work through a lot of issues, especially if they have good decision making skills. I had one CEO asked me, set me down. It was in the South, and he sat me down, and he was really worried because his CPO was retiring. It was the first time he had a CPO. A guy came in, did a lot of fixing, and he said, "What skills do I need?" And I said, "You need 2 skills. A procurement person has to be curious, and they have to have emotional intelligence. If you have those 2 skills, you can teach them everything else. You can teach them, the matrices and then how to quote and how to work with suppliers, but you can't teach the basics of curiosity and emotional intelligence."
Yeah. I think that some of the a lot of the traditional procurement skill set is commoditized, and what I mean by commoditized is more that it's a skill that you can teach, as you say, but there's not going to be the difference between whether you're successful or not. You can have the best data analytics skills in the world, but if you can't influence and tell a story around that data, then it's going to be difficult for you to actually make a difference.
And now that I look at, so if you look at what is training like now and what is development like now, first off, you need a development plan. I really hate saying training, but you really need a longer term development plan. How are you going to grow these folks over time, and then how are you going to grow them into the positions? And if they won't grow, you've got to do something about it. But when you start thinking about the old classroom training, it's limited flexibility. People have to go when they have to go. They have time constraints. It costs a lot of money. People don't want to take time out of their busy schedules to do it, and it's really not great. And then if you go to the current e-learning processes that people have, some of them are still using slideshows. They don't get the social impact. They don't get they have lots of technological barriers. People wait on e-learning. I was at ISM and SIPS, and people sign up for these licenses, and then the last day that the license is due, they're trying to run 8-10 courses to meet their management objective. And they're emailing and clicking as it goes along. And so, you really have to think about, how do we change these skill sets and what do we do?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, learning comes through doing, doesn't it? Yes, you can learn in a classroom of concepts and things like that, but it's all around actually putting into practice or having the ability to role play. And that's and that's traditionally, before we, look at opportunities that the metaverse is allowing us. We talked a little bit about that in episode 1. Traditionally, that's very expensive because that requires in-person, it requires, a lot of travel, but that's not necessarily so. So now you're getting the opportunity to put into practice, what you were learning, but not necessarily there's not really the expense that there used to be in doing that.
No, I know. And we're working with a mining company, and the mining company teaches mine safety through a VR headset, which is really a lot safer than trying to send people into a mine and teach them safety. So, you can simulate things. You can simulate, if you're in procurement, you can simulate a virtual factory tour. You can look for the kinds of things, the cost analysis and things that you want to drive. So I think if we don't address the old methods, and I think some of the older organizations have not wanted to address moving into new technology. If they don't move into new technology, they're going to be left behind. People don't have time to travel all over. The old dinner meeting seminar thing, I don't see anybody going to meetings anymore. I think the pandemic has helped us as well, learning how we can get very flexible with technology.
Now, you talked about automation changing a focus for procurement on managing externally versus managing internally. I just wonder if you could just kind of explain that a little bit more about what you mean by that.
Okay, so early on in my career, I wrote a book on supply chain called Transforming Supply Chain. And what I said is that a lot of our supply chains are going to be competing supply chains. And in the field that you come from, automotive, the automotive supply chain, you have a domestic supply chain, a Japanese supply chain, a Korean supply chain, and they're breaking apart. So we have competing supply chains. And one of the things that Pierre Mitchell once said, and I took it on board, is that when you pick a supplier, you're not just picking a supplier, you're architecting your supply chain. And so I think in the future, what we're going to see is that people are going to be moving into where we have integrated systems. So the systems will be integrated. If you look at this really scares people. But when you look at the Internet of Things and you look at, the integration, you don't need planning and forecasting and demand planning. You sell something, the demand goes right through the supply chain. You see it real time, and that's how you manage. But you really have to be managing your suppliers in terms of alignment of strategies, alignment of the right the right objectives, the right tools, the right investment at the right time. So I think that we're going to be managing our supply chain completely to try and get it to be the most competitive, and drive us competitive advantage against our other competitors.
So you see that procurement professionals become more of an architect, if you will, of there's all these different things, whether it's in supply chains, whether it's getting data from the right place, whether it's, having to provide a custom solution for every single stakeholder, given all these this access to information and insights and people and technology that you have. So we're having to bring all that together using that business acumen to help us to know what to bring for who, as opposed to it being, working on another sourcing project. which is
Yes.
what we've done for 20 years.
Yes, the other thing I think is if you're a person sitting in a procurement role and your function is transactional or tactical, you can probably live your life about maybe another 5 years,
Yeah.
and it's getting even tougher on the CPOs. I know I looked at a couple studies, and what I found is the average lifespan of a CPO in business is 4.4 to 4.6 years,
Mhm.
and I started thinking about why is that? Right? Well, there's a problem with the focus on price. So if there's a focus on price and cost, that you come in as a new CPO, you're going to be okay the first year. You're new, supply chain's a little bit uneasy. They do things for you to help you get your savings. The second year, you work maybe more on the strategic ones, and you're happy. By the third year, they've given you as much margin as they're going to, and if you don't develop your team and your team isn't ready to be flexible, change things, work on investment. I mean, there's a lot of things we could do with suppliers in terms of jointly investing, getting them to invest, building the future. But if you don't do that, then you're going to be sitting there in year 3 with no savings and out the door in year 4.
Yeah.
So value,
the hamster
value,
wheel then continues.
yeah, and value is the more important thing. So shifting management's objectives from cost reduction to value improvement is going to make all the difference in the world for longevity, I think. And if you can't provide value, you're going to be out the door.
Mm-hmm. Now, we obviously focus about the impact of this new technology, the impact of automation on procurement. Do you see other functions within the business being challenged with a similar kind of, change and almost like this existential, what are we going to be and how do we embrace this?
Oh, sure. I mean, the one thing is, the R&D group. I mean, the R&D group has to innovate, have ideas, and they better be starting to look at, how can they find the right customer fit, the right customer demands. Engineering, I'm sure, is going to change. Demand planning and forecasting, I think, is going to go away. And marketing's changing now. You walk into a store, the store knows you're there. They know, they're sending you ads, they're sending you everything. I even talked to my wife about something I've seen and I want to buy. And the next day on Facebook, my ads are just full of things that, so marketing is far advanced in using technology and data to manage their businesses. Unfortunately, we are not quite as advanced.
No, but it's interesting. As you see the influx of investment in the procurement supply chain space, it's almost like it got saturated within the sales and marketing space to the investment, but also there's, you can see the impact of that investment in sales and marketing. And because supply chain and procurement was underinvested, that's kind of where the money went next. And that's what we're now in this. It's an exciting, but also an uncertain time for procurement and supply chain because we have got a lot of investment, a lot of ideas that have actually been validated outside of procurement and supply chain and now being brought into procurement and supply chain. And that's driving a lot of the churn. Well, not the churn, but the change that we're seeing.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then having people in procurement that, have old systems and poor data, they have a long way to go. And I think we're going to talk about that in episode 3.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to today's episode, part of our 4-podcast series focused on procurement's future in an AI-empowered world in partnership with the team at LavenirAI. To listen to the entire series, go to artofprocurement.com/emergingtech. That's artofprocurement.com/emergingtech. If this episode struck a chord with you, please do send it to somebody. We grow here at Art of Procurement through word of mouth, and that would be really appreciated. You can also support us by giving us a thumbs up, a star rating, or a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Since 2015, we've built the world's largest free resource for procurement professionals looking to elevate their impact. Our resources span podcasts like this, videos, blog posts, papers, and events. To join us on the inside and to ensure you never miss an episode, a webinar, event, or a post, please do subscribe to our weekly newsletter, This Week in Procurement. You can do that at artofprocurement.com/subscribe. That's artofprocurement.com/subscribe. Thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.